Initiating moisture.
What the fuck's poppin'? How's that ass smellin'? Welcome to the Boku no Moist Meter. Today we're looking at the very popular anime series My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia as it's known in Japanese, which directly translates to My Penis Only Gets Hard for Anime Titties. Now, Boku no Hero Academia just finished its third season, so I figured I'd do a Moist Meter for the show thus far. Full disclosure, I haven't read the manga. I don't really read manga anymore. When I was younger, I was a bit of a manga maniac, but not anymore. As I began to grow older and evolve into this mountain of masculinity you see before you today, I started sprouting more hair on my chest and my nipples, and I discovered I much prefer seeing the content come to life in animation as opposed to just a flat page. Now, My Hero Academia is a great fucking show. It's a show about Deku, who is a quirkless hero in a world where quirks mean everything. Everyone has one. It's very rare that you don't have one. Quirks are superpowers, basically. The whole world has superpowers to different degrees, and the whole society is built around the idea of being protected by heroes, one in particular, All Might. And the show is about All Might losing his powers but passing it down to Deku, and Deku rising up to become the world's best hero and save the world from evil and villains and shit like that. It's not a unique concept or anything like that. It's not like fucking Isaac Newton was revived from the dead, and instead of proposing gravity, he instead proposed the My Hero Academia anime plot. It's not deep, but it's fucking fun, and it's a lot of fun to watch unfold with really interesting characters that are well designed with some really imaginative superpowers, quirks. And it leads to a lot of fun fights between hero versus hero, hero versus villain. It's always a joy when the show gives you a fun fight to watch, because the animation is second to none and the fights are fucking great. And each fight is always accompanied by an even greater soundtrack. This show has some fucking bangers. I love listening to the soundtrack of the show even when not watching it, which I don't do for many things. It just really makes you feel empowered, like you want to fucking punch your ass through a wall or something. Like you want to take your fist and just jam it through 15 inches of pure adamantium vibranium concrete. It just makes you feel strong as fuck, like a hero like them. And that's when the show's at its best, when they have this climactic fight, you know, All Might versus a super big tough villain, or a hero, Deku, versus Kachan or something. Just a fun fight to watch unfold. That's when the show's at its best. But there's a lot of points in the show where it really hangs and it's a very clear filler. I'm all for character building. I love that character building, you know, feel good shit to put some butterflies in your butthole. I'm all for that. But this show really sometimes misses the mark in that department. There's no better example than Season 3. The second half of Season 3 is downright just awful, almost insufferable to me. First half I thought was great, but the second half, right when they start doing the provisional licensing shit, I just lost so much interest in even bothering finishing the season. Obviously I did because I love the show as a whole, and I know it gets better, but it was just so boring. The provisional licensing thing was, you know, the heroes, the main cast of characters, they have to go through this test to get a license to be able to use their powers like the professional heroes do. That's very low stakes, and the tests weren't fun to watch. It was, you have to talk to some, survivors of a tragedy. Okay, that's cool. Okay, you talk to them. Great. You kind of fight some people. Not really. Okay, that's not really fun to watch. That was the whole thing. It's just this low stakes, no fun shit. It didn't really build characters. I guess kind of did here and there, but it just wasn't enjoyable. It was really boring and just so trivial. It just seemed like very clear filler, and it seemed absolutely unnecessary. Like, fuck the provisional license. Just skip that whole thing. I like how they introduced new characters from other schools instead of just having the primary school UA steal the spotlight. They had other schools come in. You saw some really cool quirks from them, but I'm sure they could have found a better way of doing that instead of like a dodgeball match, a fucking tag match. That's just so fucking boring. And there's other points like that in the series, but Season 3, that arc dragged on way too long, much longer than it should have. If it was like 2 or 3 episodes where they built all that up, that'd be totally fine. I'd be on board with that and I would have probably enjoyed it. But when they stretch it out like that, they make like a fucking Dragon Ball Z fight where you're powering up, where you're just dodging dodgeballs for 2 episodes, it's boring. No one wants to watch that. Another thing I think this show really misses on sometimes is inspiration. And what I mean by that is there's at least 10 times per season, 10 to 15 times per season where Deku, he starts crying, he starts feeling down, but then one word changes his perspective. He gets inspired. And then the music picks up in this crescendo like, yes, I am inspired now because you told me about it. Yes, I am strong. And then he does that 10, 15 times. The exact same inner monologue, the exact same fucking trigger word every time. Like, how many times can you get inspired, motherfucker? Are you kidding me? Like, every time someone farts, this man finds new inspiration. Like, it's way too often, it's not always Deku, but it's way too often someone gets inspired by one single word, and it goes through the same monologue and the same exact scenario and the same, feel good, I'm strong, I'm unique, I'm special type deal. You can't, it really blows its load way too many times with that angle. That's like some traditional generic anime cliche thing, I understand, but it's overdone. It's at least 10 to 15 times per season, and it's just way too much. And each time it happens, you kind of laugh and smile because it's cute, but fuck, does it get old. It really overstays its welcome. The show, though, as a whole, I think is great. I love the villains. I think the villains in the show are so fucking strong. Right now, you don't know a whole lot about them in the show, so they're a bit two-dimensional, but they're so fucking cool. And one of the main villains, Stain, I thought was just a really strong character overall. It's a villain that you can almost root for and side with. You might not approve of his methods, but you understand his message. And it's just, everything about the villain side of the show is great. Heroes as well. It's just, there's no characters in the show that I think are super fucking weak or awful or anything. And there's not a whole lot of moments in the show where I think the action misses its mark or the story misses its mark. It's just specific episodes or themes I think fall short. So let's just go ahead and plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving My Hero Academia an 85%. I think this is an anime that you absolutely should watch. It lives up to the hype. I think it is a very enjoyable one. It's just a fucking blast to watch all around, in my opinion. So yeah, that's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. It's me, the avatar of Greece, the unshowered specimen of pure filth. Over 24 hours without a shower, feeling real stinky, delivering another anime Moist Meter, this time for Attack on Titan. Season 3 just ended, so I figured I'd do a Moist Meter for the whole show. I think Attack on Titan is a must-see anime, even if you don't like anime, or even cartoons. I remember when the first season came out back in college, my roommates, who never watched anime, they were way too cool, I like football, I prefer the pigskin, not these fucking titties, cartoon 2D stuff. Then I'd come into the room and they're fucking watching Attack on Titan, embarrassed about it. Oh, bro, I was just flipping through the anime.com, fucking weirdos making fun of them. But what I'm saying is, it was a show that captured the audience that isn't just anime lovers. It was a season that was so good that the general populace really got drawn in. For a good reason, because it's almost a masterpiece. There's a lot of low points in Season 1, in my opinion, but it's super fucking good. The animation in Attack on Titan Seasons 1, 2, and 3 is a fucking stellar. Outstanding. The action scenes are the most stylish and beautiful in all of the currently airing anime. The animation is just leagues above others, and that's my biggest compliment to the show. It's so fucking great when you get this high octane, fucking Spider-Manning around these naked giants and then slashing their necks. It's so fucking fun to watch. And on top of that, the show has a fucking interesting story to tell, a really interesting story to tell. It doesn't always tell it very well, but the story is good enough, and they do a good enough job to keep me fucking scratching at my neck like a meth addict going through withdrawals, waiting for more answers to the questions it proposes. You always want to learn more about the universe in Attack on Titan and about the characters. I don't think all the characters are that great. I even think the main character, Eren Yeager, is a bit underwhelming. He does a lot of sulking and, self-pity. Oh, fuck, my dick's so small, I have to keep the lights off because girls will laugh at it. I'm just not good enough. Why was I chosen? I'm not worthy. And then I'll have like a eureka moment and get inspired. It's 3.5 inches of steel and bravery. It's enough penis for any girl. I am the one. I can do this. And then he goes and does his job. There's a lot of that, and I don't care for that much. So I think he's not a super great character overall. But there are a lot of good characters in here. I think Captain Levi, for example, is a fucking great character. Well-rounded, super fun to watch. It's a really good show overall. And a lot of those, pinky out, anime, Puritan nerd, soft dick in hand nerds like to criticize Attack on Titan and think anyone that likes it is some type of Cro-Magnon who has poor taste. But I don't understand why. The show is just really good. Even if you don't like anime, it's a really good show. Even if you don't like a good story, the action is really good and worth it to sit through the story. Now, that being said, there's a lot of exposition in the episodes, and that's kind of a negative. Even though I love the story, it's a bit of a negative because Season 3, for example, the one that just wrapped up, there was so few action scenes in here it was almost insulting. It seemed like it kind of forgot what kind of show it was. There's entire episodes where it takes place in like 3 rooms total, just talking back and forth. It's not exactly filler because you learn very important details about the characters of the story, but it's not super fun to watch either. You're just being lectured. It's like you're sitting in a college classroom learning about like microbiome or something. Now, that's not to say I think Season 3 is bad by any means, because I did enjoy it, but when you look back on Season 1, which had the perfect balance of a lot of really incredible jaw-dropping action and story, and then you look at Season 3 where it seems like they ran out of money and could only animate standing still, face scenes and mouth movements, it's sad. Because you want more action, and there is some, and when it's there in Season 3, it's still really good. But you always want more. You want story with the action. That's what the show was built on. That's why Season 1 was such a huge success in every part of the world. That's why so many people that don't even like anime fell in love with it. It is just really fucking fun. But it's not fun to watch the characters just stand in a fucking football huddle, divulging information to each other. That's kind of boring to watch, and it's a bunch of flashbacks, which also are not that fun to watch. Season 2 also kind of fell victim to that, not as badly. I thought Season 2 was pretty strong, even though a lot of people disagreed. I thought it built up to something really big, and then that something really big happened at the end, and it was very worth it. Season 3 felt like it was building up to something really big, and then it just ended. It ended on a very slow episode. It ended on a cliffhanger at the end of the episode, which was kind of just upsetting, because I hate that kind of shit when you leave a cliffhanger like that, especially on the back of a boring episode. That's just kind of a slap in the face. But, and I understand why, because they divided the season in half. It's coming back in 6 months. I get it. It's not the end of Season 3. It's Season 3.5's coming up, but still, why? It's just not a very interesting way of concluding Season 3, and a lot of Season 3 was just not that fun to watch. The story's great, though, so learning more about it's always nice, but there had to be a better way of going about that instead of animating full episodes where nothing fucking happens except talking. But overall, I think Attack on Titan is an absolute must-see. It does a perfect balance of despair and hope. You get to see some really, horrific things, and you get to see some really impressive reactions from the characters that seem so lifelike. The facial expressions, the voice acting, all of it really sells the emotion of the show and makes it a very dark and sad story, and a very interesting one at that. And the action, I can't express enough how much fun it is to watch the action in here, and it's so beautifully animated. The sound, the music, the soundtrack, so fucking good, iconic even. So let's just go ahead and plug this shit into the Moist Meter. I'm giving Attack on Titan as a whole an 85%. I think it's a must-see, and I really wish Seasons 2 and 3 took some notes from the first season, which was executed so well, because Seasons 2 and 3, in my opinion, just weren't even close to as good. They're still good. I still enjoyed them, but they couldn't hold a candle to Season 1, the beauty of it, the grand scale of things, all the fun of it. But it is still absolutely worth watching, and I think the next season of Attack on Titan, the 0.5 of Season 3, is going to be fucking amazing, because they've hyped it up for 13 episodes worth in this, pseudo season, so it's gotta be a huge payoff, I would hope. So I'm excited for that, and I absolutely think Attack on Titan is a show you need to watch if you like anime, and even if you don't, because it's really fucking good. So yeah.
This episode of Moist Meter was brought to you by Crunchyroll.
Initiating moisture.
Dr. Stone I find to be an incredibly unique anime and just general show with an idea and premise I've never seen explored successfully in any medium. I fucking love Dr. Stone. The show is about an anomaly that occurs in the modern age that petrifies all of humanity, turning them to stone for thousands of years, 3,700 years. After 3,700 years, the protagonist named Senku wakes up, and Senku is like Google waking up. He has the accumulation of 2 million years worth of humanity's knowledge at his disposal. He's the preeminent prodigy of science. He knows everything there is to know about building shit and making shit. And what he wants to do is bring humanity back and back into the modern age, starting from literally nothing. Bare ass, naked, full asshole out, wants to bring humanity from that point all the way to the point where we've got television, porn, all of that again. It is an incredible show. It's like watching primitive technology, but across an entire show. In the beginning, he makes clothes out of leaves. He uses hammers and chisels made out of stones, where he's banging stones against other stones. He's using some of the same tools you see primitive technology using, where he's twirling fucking twigs into the strings that he needs. It's really impressive, and all of what they show is accurate in terms of the science and the tools that they use and how they get to the point, the chemicals, the reactions. All of it is accurate. I knew some of it, I didn't know most of it, and I fact-checked that shit. I fact-checked that bitch constantly just to see if I could point a finger and say, nope, you're wrong, you lied to me, this is wrong. And at no point did I ever come across that case. All of the science they show here and everything they make, they tell you how they do it, and it is all exactly how it is done, which I find to be impressive. When I first went into this show, knowing the premise, I thought I was going to be making a whole bunch of leaps and shit using magic, out of nowhere. One episode, Senku's got his cock and balls out because he's butt-ass naked after being unpetrified, and then the next episode he's got fucking Home Depot tools at his disposal, and he's using a power drill to set up the first RGB gaming keyboard. I didn't know it'd be step-by-step from ground zero, making the tools, then making the shit with the tools and building upon that foundation. And every step of the way, it was fascinating. It was genuinely educational in a very fun way. And as the show progresses, there's more and more characters that get introduced, and obviously none of them are up to Senku's level of understanding science. Some of them don't even believe science is a real thing because they're in this primitive world where there is no science, there is no technology, and Senku's the only one that can bring it back. So he's constantly explaining how the things work to the characters in the show, which in turn explains it to the viewer, which is really fucking cool. Teaching you how to make goddamn fucking, I don't want to spoil anything, but making some really impressive shit, teaching you how electricity and shit works. Like, it's really crazy. And over the course of the 24 episodes in the season, he goes from nothing to having some pretty impressive stuff at his disposal, and it doesn't feel at any step that it was a huge jump where all of a sudden he has nothing and now he has as telescopes and space shuttles. They have everything in between that builds up to that point, showing you every step and teaching you every step how they got there, which I find great. It's never slow, it never drags, there's constant inventions, constant shit going on. I think the villain is also really well realized. I think it's a really cool villain. There's really nothing I didn't enjoy about this show. I can see why some people wouldn't like it and maybe find it boring, because it really is a show that is mainly about building characters and building shit, inventing things, and some people may not care about that. It's not like other animes in its category where you got constant sword battles, you got ass cheeks going against assholes in these constant fights, and there's a lot of action. That isn't here in Dr. Stone. There is action and there is scenes of fighting, but it's very scarce. It is mainly about these characters interacting with science, discovering things, and building things, all of which I think work really well in the context of the show and make it really thrilling and fun, and at times just downright gorgeous. If I had to nitpick one complaint, though, I felt towards the end of the season, things got a little bit too fast-paced, if that makes any sense. What I mean by that is they'd spend 5 episodes collecting one mineral or one chemical that they need for an invention. But then towards the end of the season, if they needed to invent something they didn't have it only took them an hour or one scene to get it immediately and bring it back, and then they made the invention, whereas that same task took them 5 episodes previously. So it just feels like at some point they just disregarded a lot of the grunt work that they were showing and a lot of the explanation that they were giving. Kind of like what Game of Thrones did with travel, where it took an entire fucking season for an army to march, and then in season 7 or 8 they could get there in literally 2 scenes. And I get why they kind of gloss over those scenes of them gathering what they need and explaining exactly how everything works. They focus more their explanations on the things that are extremely important in the show, and towards the end they just kind of gloss over a lot of the stuff. And I don't mind it that much because it would be kind of boring just to watch them go do more gathering that you've already seen, and then another explanation for something that you probably didn't really need to know because it's not going to be the most important component in the show or anything. So I get glossing over it for time. It's not that big of a deal, but it is something that does break the show's established rules of it's a lot of work to get these things, and here's how it all works. At some point you have to accept it's not a whole lot of work at a certain point, and they don't need to explain everything. And that's fine by me. Plugging Dr. Stone into the moist meter, I'm giving it a nice fat old 90%. This is probably my favorite anime of the year, but I imagine it'll be kind of divisive for people who either aren't into anime or only into a certain kind of anime, because it is very different. It is an extremely unique show. Some of the characters aren't overly unique in the genre, but overall the show itself has its own very niche identity. And I think it's great. I really, really enjoyed it from start to finish, and I can't recommend the show enough. Really fucking good stuff. Now, during streams when anime gets brought up as a conversational topic, they always ask me where I watch it, where I watch my anime. I've always watched anime on Crunchyroll. I find Crunchyroll just to have the best catalog of anime. Pretty much anything that comes out is going to be on Crunchyroll, and almost immediately as well. Dr. Stone, Fire Force, Demon Slayer, all of it just right there. I don't have to search the web endlessly waiting to try and find something that works. Crunchyroll not only works, but its catalog is just so massive you can pretty much find any anime you've even been moderately interested in watching. There's also Crunchyroll Premium that lets you watch all anime totally ad-free, and let's be honest, no one wants to sit through an ad when they're watching a show. Also with Premium, you never have to worry about the quality being anything less than superb, top-of-the-line, state-of-the-art, glorious 1080p, chakra vibrating levels of quality. Also, with Crunchyroll Premium, you get the anime an hour after it airs in Japan, so it's quick, and the subtitles are professionally done instead of just a small team of high schoolers getting together to subtitle as a hobby. It's fantastic. So if you're interested, you can use crunchyroll.com/penguinz0 to get a free 14-day trial for Crunchyroll Premium. Crunchyroll.com/penguinz0 if you're interested in the Crunchyroll free trial. And yeah, thanks again. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
What a fucking year for anime. Welcome to the Moist Meter. We're looking at another anime, Vinland Saga. This is an Amazon exclusive one, and it absolutely slaps. It is, again, another great anime to finish off 2019. It's the story of a Viking on a quest for revenge, and he travels along with the man who kills his father, hoping to kill him at some point. And it's a lot deeper than that, but that's the gist of it. It is such a well-written show with perhaps one of the best villains in all of anime, and it could even be argued that the main villain isn't even a villain. So Askeladd is who I'm talking about, and he is just beautifully written, an incredible character. He's at some times your comical mustache twirling, I will behead you for the sake of entertainment, ha ha ha, kind of villain. But then other times they give him so much depth to give context to that side of him, and it's just really impressive what they've done with that character. Thorfinn is arguably the protagonist, but it's hard to say because I also could say Askeladd is the actual protagonist of the season. It's just a really great dynamic between Thorfinn and Askeladd, and I think both characters are really, really strong, especially Askeladd. The whole season, I was worried it would drag, but at no point does the season ever drag. There is a lot of action, but there's also a lot of just characters scheming, talking, you getting to know the characters, their environment, their time period, their morals, their ideals. It's a lot of actual character development and depth as opposed to just Vikings ripping tits off and slicing cock. It is a lot more than I expected. And I also want to point this out, this is the first anime I've ever seen where I never skipped the intro, at least in the first one. Survive Said the Prophet did the intro for the first part of the season, and it's such a banger. That song absolutely bangs. I never skipped it because it was so good. I didn't care for the second song they used in the second half, so I started skipping it then. But when they were using Survive Said the Prophet, I was fucking bumping my fist to that shit every time. It was just a really, really great show, and I really enjoyed it. The animation was top-notch. When there was a fight, it was really well animated. I didn't think at any point that it felt cheap. There wasn't any times where it was, you know, a still image with a moving camera, like One Punch Man Season 2 or some shit. It really felt very full of passion, and like they wanted to come out here and make something memorable, and I think they absolutely did. I think Vinland Saga is one of the strongest of the season. It's hard for me to say if it's the best of the year, because I really, really like Dr. Stone, and the new Attack on Titan was great too. I don't know, it's just a really, really great show that I highly recommend, and this is one of those that I'd recommend to people that don't like anime. It has great gory action with actual cool choreography in it. It has great character development and writing across the board. Sometimes it has some really goofy anime tropes, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, and especially with how scarce they are in this, it's just really, really enjoyable. I have nothing but compliments for Vinland Saga. That being said, I don't think it's like the best show ever made, but it's definitely one of the best of this year. It is really enjoyable, so plugging Vinland Saga into the Moist Meter, I'm giving this bad boy a fat 90% again. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 95%, I'm going to go ahead and justify that, is because I can see why people would maybe lose interest in the historical aspect that they try and capture at some points. Because, again, a lot of it is like there's this priest who just likes to get drunk and talk about love. I can see some people getting very turned off by that. So I can definitely see some negatives some would have. I didn't have any personally, but looking at it through other perspectives, I can definitely see some parts of this dragging for some people, because there is like 3 episodes of just straight walking across some terrain and characters talking about love and what it means to be a warrior, and to some people that's not the most entertaining thing in the world, but I think it is an extremely strong show that I enjoyed from start to finish, and I kept waiting week by week to see what the next unveiling in the show was. There's also a character, Thorkel, who has a lot of depth that you don't expect, because in the beginning he's just this giant fucking monster man that just seems devoid of all intelligence, but by the end of the season you see a lot of different sides of him, and he is a lot more than meets the eye. Great show. That's about it. So yeah.
This episode of Moist Meter was brought to you by Keeps.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. This is the second movie from the My Hero anime franchise, and the first one was great. This one's even better, I think. Now, it's not canon, and I'm of the firm belief if you're gonna make something that's not canon, just go fucking hog wild with that shit. I don't care if it makes sense, just make it fun and over the top as fuck. Bring in time-traveling space pirates. Have the main characters steal the Fist of God. I really don't care, because it's not canon. Just make that shit memorable. And that's exactly what this movie does. I'll get the only negative out of the way about the movie. The narrative, it's weak. The narrative's not great, but what the narrative does is it allows the stage to be set to have every member of the class come in and showcase their talents and their quirks and have them work together, team up against these 4 new villains, which are all pretty cool. And I really like that they're bringing the class as the front row and center, because as the anime progresses, naturally they're dialing in on the main characters and focusing there, so you're seeing less and less of the side characters. So it's nice to have this movie bring them back into the spotlight and show you that, hey, you know, they're not useless, they can do some cool shit. I mean, a couple of them are useless, but for the most part they can do some cool shit, and that movie shows it, and I love that. But the narrative, it's not great. It's really not, especially towards the end. Towards the end of this movie, they are really pulling some fat shit out of their ass. They're going 2 fists deep and just yanking as much shit out as possible. It's really fun, and man, that final fight is super beautiful to look at, but it makes no sense. And when they try to explain some of the nonsensical shit, it's weaker than a 20-year-old condom. It is just, by all definitions, some ass pulling, which is fine because it's not canon, comes with the territory, and it just showed you some really fucking awesome shit. So it's not that big of a deal that they don't have a real explanation or excuse for why certain things happened. But I mean, fucking Deku and Bakugo died 15 times in this movie. Spoiler alert. When you see them on screen, their death is soon to follow, but they always get brought back because explanations. I mean, that's an exaggeration, of course, but it really is very silly in that department, which I think is fine, because it's not canon. As long as it's cool, memorable, and just an enjoyable experience, I think it really hits the marks that it's looking for. I do think if you haven't seen the show, there's really not a whole lot here for you, because part of the fun of this movie is seeing those characters that you haven't seen in like 2 fucking seasons contributing again, doing cool shit again, and I really enjoyed that. I felt like the gang was getting back together, you know, getting back on the ice, ready to play a couple more hockey games here in the big league. So that was really enjoyable. Another complaint I did have, there's 4 new villains introduced in this movie, but only 2 of them have any stage presence at all. 2 of them are just thrown away almost immediately. There's 2 villains in that group that I think had 3 lines of dialogue and 5 minutes combined of screen time. So I just kind of wasted on those 2 because I think they were really cool, and I think their quirks were pretty interesting that they didn't explore at all. They were just kind of used as a little fleshlight and punching bag tossed to the side, which I think is a bit of waste of potential. But the 2 villains from the group that did stand out really fucking stood out. They were really great, especially the main bad guy, 9. I think he was fantastic. Intimidating, menacing, and just a really great final boss fight. And that final fight lasts like 45 minutes. That's the bulk of this movie, is just the last fight, and it is beautiful every second of the way. And that's when all the heroes are really firing on all cylinders, doing some cool shit. I was very pleased with the movie. There is a lot you could pick apart, especially when you come to the narrative side of things and some of the decisions they made. But why the fuck would you? It's not canon in the first place anyway. So just let them have these explanations. I would have been totally fine if the way they excused it was at the end it was all a dream. I wouldn't have even fucking cared at that point. It was just a really enjoyable experience. The animation here and that final fight is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm a sucker for that kind of shit at the end where this climactic battle has like 9 different acts to it all over the course of 45 minutes, and then towards the final act they just cut everything and it's just ambient noise and music. I love that. I love that shit. Overall, very enjoyable. Movie was hype as fuck. Plugging this into the Moist meter, I'm giving My Hero Academia Heroes Rising a nice 85%. Very good stuff. And it right in line with the show. The show's good, movie's good, so it's nice that they are both good together. Neither one of them stinky, which is fantastic. Time we talk about something serious here, boys. Hair loss. Nothing to be embarrassed about, but it's also something you don't have to deal with. Statistics, and I'm not using these to scare you, but statistics say 2 out of 3 men will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35. That is unacceptable, I say, especially when there's other options out there. I'm talking, of course, about Keeps. Keeps will help you keep that beautiful lion's mane looking beautiful. They offer actual treatments, real, scientifically proven effective treatments. None of that pseudoscience garbage you'll find on the internet about, rubbing motor oil in your skull to help with preventing hair loss. None of that. Real, actual, proven, efficient, effective treatments. Keeps treatments are up to 90% effective in preventing hair loss. You can also talk to a doctor through Keeps to get medication prescribed and delivered right to your doorstep. There are plenty of steps you can take using Keeps to help combat balding, male pattern baldness, hair loss, whatever you want to call it. There's steps you can take. So if you're interested and ready to take action, go to keeps.com/moist to get 50% off your first order. That's keeps.com/moist, or just click the link in the description.
This episode of Moist Meter was brought to you by Crunchyroll.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Black Clover. It's actually been a little while since I've watched any anime, if you can even believe that, and I've had just kind of that empty feeling in my nutsack that only anime could fill, so I decided to check out Black Clover since it's been recommended to me quite a bit recently, which I find surprising because I remember when Black Clover first came out, everyone fucking hated it. I heard nothing but negative things about it. It was like Game of Thrones Season 8 for anime where everyone was shitting on it. So to see that it's turned around in such a big way, at least online, was surprising. So I definitely checked it out with an open mind and open legs, just spreading my cheeks ready to accept whatever I was about to watch. And I gotta say, it was good. I enjoyed it. Now, obviously, the worst part of Black Clover is its beginning. Like, the first 15 episodes are spent with the main character, Asta, just constantly screaming. And it definitely gets grating. And when I say screaming, I mean every time he opens his mouth, it's like you're listening to 2008 post-hardcore screamo music, like some fucking Silverstein shit or something. Every single time he speaks, it is yelling. It makes Dragon Ball Z look like child's play. The voice actor here has to have some superhuman vocal cords. He's like a fucking real-life X-Men with a mutation that gives him iron vocal cords to withstand all of this screaming. It is impressive, but also gets old kind of quick. Another thing I didn't really love right away was all the characters. I love the fact that they've introduced so many characters so quickly in the show. They give you like a very clear structure, like here's the upper echelon of powerful magic users, and here's all of these interesting characters that have these quirks. But one thing that I didn't like about it is how it falls into that anime cliche where if a character has a quirk or a little wacky thing about them, like, hey, I like birds, well, the only thing that fucking character ever does is talk about birds. They just become this embodiment of that one trait. For example, in this show, in the beginning, there's this character that really likes his sister. So anytime that character's on screen, he's talking about his sister, looking at a picture of his sister, jerking off to his sister, and just everything about him is sister-oriented. It just gets so tiresome. I really don't like that cliche. Demon Slayer did it too when they introduced all of those new characters towards the end where they all had something a little special about them, a little quirk. I don't like that. At least make the characters interesting from the get-go instead of just being like this fucking caricature for this one trait. I'm just not a huge fan of that. So there were definitely things in the beginning that I didn't like. A lot of people say how uninspired and lazy it is, how it just copies other things and borrows this and that from other things. And yeah, at no point does Black Clover ever really try and reinvent the condom. It just kind of very falls in line with generic shonen stuff. but it very unapologetically makes it the most shonen shit ever, just very geared towards action and really unrelenting cutthroat pace, which I think is fucking great. It takes all of these incredible things from the genre that you just like to see. Yeah, they're not the most creative or the most inspired, but having all of these elements from all of these other shows come in here, I think is really fun. It's constantly ramping up the stakes, it's constantly getting more powerful as, the power just continues to escalate, the tension continues to escalate. It's just a lot of really fun moments. There's just so many highs in this show that happen so often, it's hard not to enjoy watching it. Yeah, again, it is not the most creative of things ever made, but I don't think it needs to be either. It's not trying to make the wheel better or anything. It's just trying to take everything, put it in here into a nice, compact little fucking soup, and feed it to you. And it's a delicious little soup. I think it's a lot of good moments and a lot of really cool shit, and I really love the animation during its fights. I think it gets very creative in that regard. I like the way they portray a lot of the magic fights and a lot of the character interactions when it comes to like combat. So I don't really have like an issue with it not being a totally unique concept or unique in pretty much any area really, because it just takes all things that we enjoy and puts them into this one big pot here, this nice little cauldron of just shonen shit all packed in here. And it is enjoyable. And like I said, the beginning's not great. The beginning isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's not fucking great either. It is kind of a chore to get through like the first 15 episodes, but after that, it really finds its stride. It really hits its highs and it keeps going. It doesn't stop. Like I said, the pacing in here is great because it is constantly just full throttle, nuts to butts, just a ton of good action and shit. The characters also get better as well. The characters, you start to grow on you. You start to learn little nuances about the characters and, their relationships to one another. So the characters also get better. They don't stay just like this 2D cardboard cutout of, well, here's one wacky trait. This girl really likes to eat candy, and that's all she'll ever do is just eat candy. There's a lot more to it than that. So it does get better. But yeah, the beginning is rocky. And it's not like the best shonen ever made or anything, but it takes elements from the best shonen and puts it into its own format and its own little world that it's created. And I think it works really well. So I do think it's a show worth watching if you just want some, fun little action-oriented shit. It doesn't make you really think too hard. It's not going to have you sitting there in like profound thought with a, finger on your temple thinking, this is changing my worldview. This is very interesting. It's just going to be there like, holy shit, that dude's throwing some fireballs and hitting it like a baseball bat with a giant sword. It is just a really enjoyable show that does have some problems that I think a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at or, sigh when they hear it come up with just generic anime cliches and also some interesting decisions that I don't think play super well. I don't want to get into spoilers or anything. But anyway, plugging this into the moist meter, I'm giving Black Clover a clean 80%. I would recommend it just for something to watch if you're looking for some action and just some good animated fights and such. And some interesting characters that do get better if you just give them a chance to grow on you. So yeah. That's about it. Now it's time to talk about Crunchyroll. If you like anime, Crunchyroll is pretty much a must if you want the ease of being able to find high quality anime that's professionally subtitled. Its catalog is so huge. You can find pretty much anything you're looking for. It's where I watch almost all of my anime as well. They also have a new one called Tower of God, which is absolutely slapping right now. So Crunchyroll is just an incredible service when it comes to watching and enjoying anime. And with Crunchyroll Premium, you can get the newest episodes an hour after they're broadcast in Japan. You can get those bad boys right at home. You get it 1080p, ad-free, professional subtitles, of course. So if you're interested in trying Crunchyroll Premium, you can use crunchyroll.com/penguinz0 to get a 14-day free trial to give this bad boy a try, which I'd highly recommend. That's crunchyroll.com/penguinz0 to try a Crunchyroll Premium for 14 days, baby. So yeah.
This episode of Moist Meter was brought to you by Crunchyroll.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Tower of God, the new Crunchyroll original, and it is an absolute banger. I knew nothing about this going into it. It had a lot of hype surrounding it, but I just approached it limp-dickedly like, yeah, I'll turn it on. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe it'll be alright. And I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it. By episode 3, I was hooked. It is a super unique show, not only in its concept, but in its presentation as well. The visuals are unlike anything I've seen before. It's like they took a fucking sketchbook and just animated that directly without like translating it to any other medium. It is stunning. I was a bit lukewarm on it initially because I was like, wow, this is different, you know. I don't know if I like different yet. And then by the end of it, I was like, shit, maybe I'm going to put some fingers in my butthole just to experience more different shit, because I fucking loved it. It really grew on me. And another thing about this show that just blew my tits off was the soundtrack. The soundtrack was so goddamn beautiful, I went out of my way to download most of it. And I had never done that for an anime before, except for Vinland Saga's first intro song, which was Survive Said the Prophet. That was the only other time. This one was so good, and I was not expecting anything like that. It has the most beautiful music that almost reminds me of the soundtrack to the first Nier game for the Xbox 360. Not Nier Automata, the one that came before it, the one that nobody fucking knows about and got spit on at the time of its release. That game had an incredible soundtrack, and it reminds me of a few of the songs in this show. It's just so good. So now getting into what the show is actually focused on, which is its story and its characters. I initially thought this was just going to be mainly action. You know, you'll have some blood and cum flying all over the place during some high-octane battles, but that's not what you get with Tower of God, and you shouldn't expect it. The show is much more focused on telling you a very interesting story with really interesting characters that all have very unique relationships and pasts with each other as well. It's hard to explain because I'm trying not to spoil anything, because I think it's best to go into Tower of God totally blind and oblivious to it if you haven't already read it, because I think that was just the optimal experience. But in a nutshell, the story I think is super interesting. As the show continues for the 13 episodes that it has, you're getting more questions than answers. You're constantly getting new information that completely changes your perspective on what the tower could even be about. You know, what's at the top of the tower, what is even the purpose, what do these characters want out of it, and it's just constantly feeding you all kinds of interesting mysteries that have you thinking. And the characters are all very well written. I think all the characters are likable, and I think everything from like a character perspective and writing perspective is extremely tight. There wasn't any time where I was like rolling my eyes at any cliches or anything. I thought it was all just really well executed. I think the romance between Bam and Rachel is well explored with a lot of, you know, tragedy sprinkled in there. It's good. What I'm saying is pretty much everything they did with the narrative in the writing department, they fucking crushed it. They absolutely crushed it. And this isn't to say that there isn't action, because there is. There is scenes of action, and it is well animated and decent action, but it's nothing super special. In fact, I'd almost say the action in here is probably the weakest part of Tower of God. Every action scene's over almost instantly. You'll have two characters, sometimes more than two characters, engage in a conflict that's approximately like one move using some magical power, or one or two attacks that either get blocked or connect, and that's pretty much where it ends. Even when you have like a super powerful person squaring off against another super powerful person, it's pretty much just a one-sided slaughter where one of the people is just going to dodge everything and then just beat the shit out of the other person with a couple blows. So I don't think the action in the show is overly great. It's still nice. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think it's like a very big highlight of Tower of God. I think Tower of God really shines when it's telling you this story, and it's giving you background on these characters, and you're watching these characters interact with each other, and you're learning everyone's motive for even being at the tower. I think that's where the show's its strongest. It's actually pretty hard to talk about Tower of God because there is so many things that could be considered a spoiler about it, and I don't want to spoil anything at all. So I think the main thing you should know about the show is that the goal for every character is to climb this tower where if you reach the top of the tower, you become God. Everyone has their own reasons, and a whole bunch of shit happens to get there, a whole bunch of tests and everything, and it's fucking spectacular. Plugging Tower of God into the Moist Meter, I'm giving this bad boy a 90%. I think this is an extremely strong show. I think the only people that would really be disappointed with it are those that are used to like an 8-figure budget all spent on a single fight scene animated over the course of a year that lasts like 5 minutes on screen. You're not going to get that level of like action scene craziness in Tower of God, so you probably will be a little let down in that department. But everything it lacks in that respect, it makes up for hugely in every other department about the show. I think it is really, really good, and I enjoyed the shit out of it. As I'm sure many of you know by now, I watch the vast majority of my anime on Crunchyroll. It just has a huge catalog and pretty much has every show I could even think of, or any show that I'm even moderately interested in, I can find on Crunchyroll easily. It's just a great service. If you're interested in checking out Crunchyroll, if you're a fan of anime, or if you want to check out Tower of God, which is a Crunchyroll original, and like I said in the Moist Meter, it absolutely banged, you can get Crunchyroll ad-free for 14 days by clicking the link in the description or going to crunchyroll.com/Penguinz0. You can get every new episode an hour after its broadcast, going right to Crunchyroll, professionally subtitled, 1080p, beautiful quality. You never have to worry about being low quality or anything. It's always going to be top-notch on Crunchyroll, so I highly recommend the service. So again, if you're interested for 14 days ad-free, you can click the link in the description. That's it. See ya.
This episode of Moist Meter was brought to you by Crunchyroll.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The God of High School, another webtoon turned anime, just like Tower of God. However, unlike Tower of God, The God of High School doesn't rely on like a super deep story, at least for this season. It relies on some full throttle, nuts to butts, high octane action that's animated beautifully, but at the cost of like character depth and writing. So let's just go ahead and get to the best part of the anime, which is obviously its fights. Most of what you're seeing in this anime is fighting. When it's not fighting, it's like there's some dialogue that's being sped up with a fast forward button because it goes at an absolute breakneck pace. Everything in this anime seems to just want to get to fights as quickly as possible and then finish those fights as quickly as possible. It felt like I was watching a Tekken 7 speed run. It was just so fast. Like there's an episode where in the beginning a guy fucking spins out a car, proposes to one of the main girls, and then 30 seconds later they're getting married out of nowhere, and then a fight breaks out at the marriage. It's just so much shit happens in such a short amount of time. And a lot of the first episodes are tournament, where it's 1 versus 1 in this showdown, and the fights will be over in like 20 seconds. You'll have like 4 fights per episode where there doesn't really seem to be any stakes or any like actual tension building up. They'll throw some beautiful choreography there for like 20 seconds, and then it all ends in a single blow. And it's just left kind of a little unfulfilled, like a little kind of queef. And there is good moments where the fight does have a lot of tension and a lot going on, and it does have a satisfying conclusion, but there's so many fights that you never really get to take anything in, and they end so quickly. And there's just so much that goes on in these fights. There's just kicks flying all over the place, tits bouncing, more kicks flying, dicks getting broken in half. There's just a ton. And there's really not a whole lot of story elements that you get to take in and get the context of why this fight's even happening or what's going on. It just seems like it wants to move so fast that it neglects everything that's not a fight. But at least those fights look wonderful. The fights really do shine, because I mean that's really what all the effort was put into, clearly. And I think that's fine. I still really enjoyed The God of High School, but it's not like there's a whole lot of actual meat on these bones here. It's just a lot of really fun fights to watch and just kind of turn your brain off and mindlessly enjoy. And that's not to say that it's completely absent of a story. There's a lot of story elements, but the problem is, since it's moving so fast, it's throwing like 1,000 things at you at once. All of a sudden you're borrowing powers from the gods, and then all of a sudden the god is coming down, God himself is coming down with Excalibur to destroy the planet in like what is a fucking swan dive straight down, and you're just left wondering, well, how did we get here? Why is this happening? 2 episodes ago, we were just watching some teenagers throwing jabs in a boxing ring. Why all of a sudden now is Galactus trying to eat the planet? It's just a ton going on all at once, and you just don't really understand why. All that you really get is a lot of fighting and a lot of questions with not very many answers. Maybe it sets itself up to answer those questions in a further season, but for here, it just becomes kind of a convoluted mess when it comes to its narrative. There's a ton of characters too. So many characters, but none of them, except for like maybe 2, have even the slightest bit of depth to them. Now, all this being said, it doesn't detract from my enjoyment of The God of High School. It is really unique in that it's able to capture such realistic motion of its characters. Every single move, when it comes to its martial arts, feels like real moves, like you're watching actual people doing martial arts against each other, except for a couple times when they're flying through the air, throwing like triple backflip, super kicks, and throwing their asshole in someone's face to finish them. But it feels like actual real martial arts captured in anime, and it's so fluid, and it's so brutal. Like, you can really feel the impact on a lot of the blows, and it's really, really unique in that aspect. Probably some of the best choreography I've seen recently from an action anime. It is absolutely a joy. The fights really are wonderful to watch, even if they do end in a single blow and aren't always a satisfying conclusion. Everything leading up to it is still an absolute blast. It's just really nice to look at. So, where I think what it wanted to do was just deliver these really unique fighting set pieces and great moments like that, and I think it absolutely succeeded and excelled. But if you're looking for a more complete package of like a story and characters with depth and, you know, actual stakes and everything, you don't really get that in here. This right now, as this season stands, has mainly just been setting up a lot of questions and maybe answering them in the future, but giving you a really memorable ride with its top-notch animation and these incredible action scenes. So plugging the God of High School into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it an 80%. I really feel like just the biggest thing, the Achilles heel of the God of High School, was its pacing. It wanted to jam-pack so much, just fucking fully fist so much into 13 episodes, that it just kind of made everything too quickly. It was just, everything was too fast. And the power scaling ramped up so quickly. It'd be one episode, it's just standard slap boxing, and then the next episode, the entire universe is at stake with some crazy kind of magic where they're summoning an asteroid to wipe out the Lord himself. Like, there's just so much that happens, and it happens so quickly, you never really get to stay in one little power zone. Take, for example, something like Gurren Lagann. You don't really ramp up the power that quickly. Yes, it goes from being underground to being fighting in the space, throwing galaxies at each other, but you spend a lot more time gradually building up to there. Here, you make that leap in a single episode. So it just moves a little too quickly for its own good, but man, it is a fun fucking ride just watching these incredible fights, and I'm excited to see more from it. I really do hope that it does have another season, and it maybe expands upon the narrative, and just give more fucking awesome fights, because there's really nothing else like the God of High School when it comes to its fights that I can think of off the top of my head. The animation is just absolutely superb. As I've mentioned in the past, I watch nearly all of my anime on Crunchyroll, and God of High School itself is a Crunchyroll original. It just has a huge catalog, so if you're a fan of anime or manga, it'll basically cover pretty much everything you can think of, and it's 2020, let's be honest, we're all fans of anime and manga, so Crunchyroll is just an extremely convenient, great service. And for those of you that really need to scratch that itch, there's Crunchyroll Premium, which gives you everything ad-free, unlimited anime and manga, everything in a nice, crisp, face-melting 1080p. New episodes hit the service an hour after they air in Japan, professionally subtitled. It's like an anime Christmas every day with Crunchyroll, so if you're interested in trying it out, you can go to crunchyroll.com/Penguinz0 to get Crunchyroll ad-free for 14 days. That's crunchyroll.com/Penguinz0. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Re:Zero, both Season 2 and Season 1, since Season 1 actually predates the Moist Meter, if you can even believe that. I know the Moist Meter is like as fucking ancient as the Tree of Knowledge back in the Garden of Eden, but it's been so long since the first season of Re:Zero that Moist Meter wasn't even around back then. So I'm just going to be taking a look at both of them briefly here, because I think Re:Zero is hard to talk about to someone that hasn't seen it without spoiling certain things about it. I really think this show is a must-watch for anyone that likes anime, or just even good storytelling. And if you like anime, you're probably already jerking off to the mini waifus in Re:Zero, or you're already watching the show constantly, glued to it, because everybody is. Re:Zero is like French fries. Everybody loves French fries. The show is just so goddamn good. In a nutshell, if you're unfamiliar with it, Re:Zero is about a guy who gets transported from the normal world into this new, wild, magical world, and he has a magical power of his own called Returning by Death, which sounds like the title to a Bullet for My Valentine album. Returning by Death is when the main character, Natsuki Subaru, dies. He reloads a checkpoint, and these checkpoints change throughout the show, so it's time looping. He time travels. When he dies, he comes back to a predetermined checkpoint that not even he's entirely certain of, because he doesn't know when they change, he doesn't know what's going to be counted as a checkpoint, so he's always left in the dark there, but he does get these checkpoints, and then he's able to loop time and start piecing together things about why he died, how to change that, how to save the people around him, and he goes through this horrifying cycle of dying and repeating constantly, just this absolutely nightmarish cycle with really brutal deaths. Natsuki Subaru gets absolutely brutalized, split in half, eaten alive, disemboweled, have his asshole ripped out of his asshole, have his fucking asshole ripped out of his mouth. Like, all kinds of bad shit happens to Subaru directly, and all the people around him face some of the most horrifying deaths. And it's up to him using this power of time looping to try and stop that from happening and fix the things around him, save himself, save others. And it's through this time looping, this death cycle, that you really get to see so many sides to the characters. The strongest part about ReZero to me is definitely the characters, because you see them in so many different ways. For example, you'll meet a character one way, and then Natsuki Subaru dies, or the character dies, and he kills himself to reload his checkpoint so he can save them. And then you see them in a totally different way because he changes his approach and how he meets them. So you see one time where he meets a character where he's like a big hero, like he punches a bad guy, saves the girl, and you get to see her, how she responds to that there. But then Subaru dies and he has to do it all over again, and this time he doesn't become a big hero and he just kind of meets her as a stranger, and you get to see how she responds to that. There's just so much thanks to this returning by death cycle, because you get to see so many sides to a character in all of these situations, and it's just so very well explored. The cause and effect in ReZero is absolutely wonderful. You can tell there is a lot of care given to each and every choice made in the show, and I really love what goes into solving a lot of these puzzles that Subaru faces. How does he save this character? How does he save himself and save this character? Is there even a way to do both? And he comes up with plans and comes up with ways to convince the people around him without telling them that he time travels, because he can't tell anybody about returning by death. There's a curse, and there's consequences if he does. And it's just such an enjoyable anime. There was never a point in either season so far where I was bored or uninterested, because the characters are so strong. There's a big cast of characters. It's a wide array of different characters. And Natsuki Subaru is the central one, who over time gradually starts to change and become really fleshed out and deep. He starts as just like a pretty simple character, but through all of these deaths, after dying hundreds of times, dying more times than fucking Prometheus getting punished by Zeus for giving fire to humans, he starts to change and he becomes this really, really deep, interesting character, at least in my opinion. I really think he's a very strong character, and it's just really impressive how they explore the horror elements of all of these deaths, and he's killed himself multiple times, which never is easy. At no point does he ever just say, I'm killing myself because I need to go back to the checkpoint, because he doesn't know where the checkpoint is. He doesn't know for sure. And it's just a really hard thing to do for him to kill himself. You know, that's not like an easy thing in any situation, no matter the cause or no matter the reason. So him making that ultimate sacrifice to try and save somebody close to him or undo something that's happened in the present, it's always very powerful, and they never let that go. It's never just something easy like, Natsuki Subaru missed out on PS5 pre-orders, so now he kills himself so that way he can go back to his previous checkpoint and get in line a little bit quicker. It's always like the absolute last resort when things really got fucked up. Subaru makes that ultimate sacrifice to try and go back to the checkpoint that he thinks he has and just do it all again and try and get the right ending and the one that he wants. It's just really fucking good. It truly is. The animation is gorgeous. Characters are super well-rounded with a lot of depth. The storytelling is magnificent. It's always interesting. Love the concept. Loved how they explore cause and effect. I love the plot, the overarching enemies. Everything is just so beautiful. I think ReZero definitely is a must-watch. There's nothing negative I could even say about it that I can think of off the top of my head. The only thing that I think some people will find disappointing is it's not like... Hey, girls. Look, my dogs are even getting excited talking about ReZero. It's not a show that's filled to the brim with nuts-to-butts action. There's not going to be a whole ton of fights per episode. In fact, there's not a whole lot of fights in general. There's a lot of, like, death and gore and shit, but there's not a lot of, like, actual fighting. It's not going to be like... You know, God of High School where you're having 4 fucking fist fights an episode. You'll go like 6 episodes without anyone throwing a punch or using any magic at all. It's mainly about the storytelling and problem solving, cause and effect, using returning by death, learning more about the characters, how to persuade people to your side, how to get this goal accomplished through words and actions without actually having like these big fights with the villains. And I feel like some people might find that disappointing if they watch anime just for like those flashy fights, because there's not a ton of those. There are fights in here, and when there are, they are very enjoyable and very good. But it's not the biggest selling point here. There's not a ton of that, and I feel like some people might be a little turned off by that. But for me personally, that was no issue at all. I'm plugging ReZero into the moist meter. I'm giving this bad boy a nice 95%. I think this absolutely lives up to the hype. You've definitely heard of ReZero before, and I think it's for good reason, because it really earns that reputation. It's an incredible show. It's extremely entertaining. It is extremely well put together, thought-provoking, and just really well executed on all fronts. I fucking love ReZero. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Netflix show Arcane, which is based on League of Legends, and I want to just start by saying it slaps. But on paper, it sounds like an absolute diarrhea disaster of an idea. Taking a video game and adapting it to any other medium almost never works. So taking League of Legends and turning it into an animation probably didn't have that many people ripping their shirt off and twirling it over their heads in excitement, unless of course you were already a League of Legends fan. Then I imagine you were pretty hyped for it. The crazy thing about League of Legends is everyone's at least heard of the game and they're familiar with it to some degree. And a lot of people, like myself, have probably even struggled with a League of Legends problem. I'm actually 3 years sober. I played from seasons 3 to 6 daily, but then I kicked the habit realizing it was bad for my mental health. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't occasionally get that itch to hop back in the Crucible, take the Summoner's Rift by the tits and go wild. I still get that little devil on my shoulder telling me it's time to get back into League. And I even still sometimes watch the League tier list, and I keep up with the meta, even watch the Worlds, of course. The thing about a League of Legends addiction is it's a lot like being addicted to heroin, except League of Legends is more embarrassing and more addictive. All of this is more like a cry for help. This has nothing to do with Arcane. The point I'm trying to make is everyone's at least heard of the show, and a lot of people maybe had a negative experience with League, so maybe wrote off Arcane right away because they just don't want anything to do with League lore or anything. And I think that's a real fucking shame, because Arcane is an incredible show. Regardless of your feelings on the game, this show stands on its own 2 feet. There is really nothing in common with Arcane with League lore. All Arcane does is borrow some of the characters and settings from League, and it uses them in a totally original manner. There is no real crossover other than just having those familiar names and faces. Arcane is such a beautiful show. The animation in Arcane is top-notch. Riot did not spare any expense here. It is fucking gorgeous. And a lot of times it felt like I was watching a goddamn AMV. Like, it felt like an old-school anime music video sometimes, because they have, like, these original tracks that'll play throughout the show, and it'll be complemented by either action or just like a full-blown montage, emotional montage of something happening with a character or multiple characters, and it's so beautiful. Like, it's done so well. Like, there's one scene in particular that really stands out to me, and I'm trying not to give any spoilers here, and I won't even mention the scene, fuck it. Just trust me when I say, when the music kicks on, expect something cool to happen, like, at every moment, because the music will often be accompanied by really great action, or just some really well done scene that's just elevated by a great background track. The thing about the show that caught me off guard the most is that it's not as family friendly as I expected. I went into it thinking it'd be like a squeaky clean, pretty generic, pretty cookie cutter experience. Like, hey, kids will like this and League fans will appreciate seeing the characters come to life, but it won't have any depth to it. That is dreadfully wrong. That's a lot of diarrhea dog shit. I was very wrong about that. That's not I'm not saying it's like the most mature show ever made. You're not going to come in here and see like fucking war crimes being presented and exploring a character's experience with a like abusive alcoholic father and seeing everything that comes along with that baggage. But it's a show that isn't just for a younger audience or for a family. They also do use explicit language. There's fuck tossed around. There's shit. There's blood. There's no cum yet. But they do tackle more heavy themes as well as explore darker moments in the series, which was surprising to me, and I appreciated it. They gave a lot of depth to these characters. It was a lot more than I expected, a lot deeper and a lot better written than I expected going into it. The writing really did impress me. They're not afraid to kill off characters, though there is a pattern that I'm noticing that I won't mention here due to spoilers that is a bit disappointing with how they handle some deaths and some other characters that don't die. I'm trying not to give away anything here, but maybe I'll do spoilers at the end and get more into it. But overall, I was impressed that they're not afraid to kill off characters that they spend a lot of time building up. And I appreciate that. They're definitely going the extra mile to make this a show worth getting invested in with the narrative. It's not some like lazily written garbage. The characters feel alive. The world feels alive. They did a great job of building this world. You're introduced to a lot of different areas and a lot of different people and places and different positions of power and how all of that is structured. It just works super well. I think the show really does a great job of bringing anyone into the narrative and getting them interested in the show. The action is also really good. It's so fluid. Like, they didn't cut corners here. It's not janky, and it feels pretty meaty, especially when Vi's delivering a fucking biblical beatdown on some bad people. They just truly didn't cut any corners anywhere. Even if you absolutely fucking hate League of Legends, you will still probably like this show. My girlfriend hates League, hates the entire idea of League, and really liked this show. Because the characters are well written, the narrative is good, and it is a beautiful show. The animation, I can't stress enough, is just visually gorgeous. And it's a very unique style that I haven't seen explored before, at least not thoroughly. I've seen a couple animated shorts in a similar style, but never a full show in the same style to this level, where everything is super fluid. Like, there's never any moments where characters are just standing still doing nothing. They're always moving. Everything is constantly in motion, and I can just really appreciate how much life that brings to the universe. I just don't have very many negative things to say about this. I do have a couple things that I'd like to bring up, though, and this is going to be spoilers, so a bit of a spoiler warning. It's going to be quick, but here come a little spoilers. The thing that I mentioned a bit earlier with death, the thing that they're making very clear is that League of Legends characters are the only ones that are unkillable in the show. Every character that has died so far is a character that has not existed in the game. But the game characters are still totally fine, still building, and I feel like that's a pattern that will probably continue for a while. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they come out of the gate swinging in Season 2 and all League of Legends characters just fucking blow up. They just get blasted by a plague or something. I don't know. But right now it just seems like they do not want to kill those League characters, which I obviously understand, but I worry that it might cheapen the narrative a bit if you just know these League characters are going to be fine for the entire show. Another thing that I'd like to critique a bit is I think they're trying to cram too much into too short a time period. Like, they're doing too much all at once, so some of the relationships just really get wild quickly. Like Vi and Caitlyn, they go from hating each other in one episode to being inseparable in the next. And I just feel like the show's missing that crucial building to that point, because it looks like they just flipped the switch and they went from enemies and really, you know, suspicious of each other to being fully trusting and fully open to each other. Like, they don't want to ever be apart. It feels like they did so much all at once that this relationship didn't get a chance to get there naturally, and it just happened in one episode. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, because it keeps the pacing fast, and this is a very fast-paced show, but I still just thought that was something worth at least mentioning. Spoilers over. Alright, and now there's still a little bit more I want to talk about before plugging this into the Moist Meter formula. I would like to mention how great a job they did with the main villain here. I think the villain of Season 1 was so well done. They weren't just cartoonishly evil, they had some very evil moments, but overall it was a character that you could almost sympathize with, you could understand where they're coming from, and you'd be upset with the way they'd be getting there, but you could still at least see that the overall goal wasn't just some burn the world down, fuck everything. It was a character that had real depth, and by the end of the season, there was just a lot to appreciate with what they did with the villain. And I always like when a show is able to make a villain that you don't just absolutely root against at every moment, and that it's not a deep villain, just there to be a punching bag for the good guys to look great against. I like that they made a very good effort to bring that villain to life, and I think they did a great job. Alright, now let's plug this into the Moist meter. I'm giving Arcane a 95%. This is another rare 95, but I do definitely believe this is a must-watch show, even for people that don't like League of Legends or have no interest in it. This is a beautiful show, and that's a word I've used like 20 times already, but it's the best way to describe it. The visuals here, the animation is so good. It is a unique-looking show that delivers a great narrative to go along with it, and the action, there's always action, so if you're here just for like some good fights, you're definitely going to get that here too. It just has something to offer to everyone. It's a show that I feel the same way I did about Invincible, where I walked away from it being like, yep, that's a show I can see a lot and most people really appreciating. Arcane is just a standout show, and I think they absolutely fucking crushed it. I haven't had any interest in League lore in years, and I fucking loved it. I was also getting a little giddy seeing some characters I recognize come into the show, but that didn't, like, matter that much. If you don't have that connection to characters, it's not gonna matter, because they'll make you care about them through good writing. I just really liked pretty much everything about the show, and I'm super excited for Season 2 whenever that'll come out, so that's about it. So yeah.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at Season 2 of ReZero. Happy to say this shit absolutely banged. I don't think there was even a single episode that wasn't good in the season. There was highs and pretty much no lows that I can recall off the top of my head. And Subaru, I mean, the dude is like what every Redditor wishes they were. Like, he is a Redditor's wet dream. In this season, every fucking female character he talks to falls in love with him. And falling in love is an understatement. Some characters are just throw away everything they ever believed in for hundreds of years because Subaru's so fucking cool and they want the chance of being like a waifu to Subaru. It's crazy. I mean, this is like Super Seducer 3, the anime character. Shit is wild. And it all, in the context of the show, it's not like he's just like cheating. He's not using, you know, game facts cheat codes. Like, it doesn't feel unearned or that it comes out of nowhere or it's just like some convenient plot device that he's an irresistible Adonis. At no point does it feel like it's silly or out of place because it's really well done where these characters bond throughout so many episodes across multiple timelines. For those that don't know, and I'm sure if you're watching this you already fucking know what ReZero is about or have already seen it and just want to make sure that I also agree the show is great, but the show basically follows Subaru, who has the ability to respawn. He's pretty much a video game character. He dies, he gets checkpoints, so he respawns there. So he gets to try different ways of progressing in this world. That's the easiest way of breaking it down. Obviously, it's not like a video game or anything, but that's the easiest way to explain it. And Subaru, when he dies, he starts over from this checkpoint, and he builds more relationships. He's constantly evolving these relationships with the characters around him, so you see so many different sides of these characters and you see them growing together. Now, to those characters, they don't get that because they only know Subaru in whatever timeline he progresses in without dying, but to the audience, you really get to see these things, and it all really, it weighs on you. It really works super well. So in this season, when he is winning over so many characters that for fucking 20 episodes, 30 episodes, he's been building these relationships, it's a really nice payoff that doesn't seem like it's unearned or out of place, so it works really well. ReZero is just one of those rare shows that is extremely hyped and lives up to the hype for the majority of people that watch it. Even the most die-hard anime snobs who wouldn't watch an anime with more than 10 people that have ever even heard of it can appreciate ReZero, and they constantly jerk off about ReZero. Despite the hype and despite trying to be the hardest anime hipsters, you can't help but like the show if you watch it. It is just a really good and interesting show. It's one that I can't really talk about too deeply without spoilers, which was also the problem I had when I reviewed it 5 months ago after part 1. But now that part 2 wrapped up, I wanted to get into it a little bit deeper. One of the focal points of the season was conquering the past. In the trials that Amelia goes through, she has to face her past. And that was really cool to see, to learn a lot more about this character, and then she grows from it and becomes a very strong character moving forward who's completely different from the Amelia we've seen for the last 30 whatever episodes. Like, she is completely changed now and evolved and is a much better character. I already liked her before, and I like her even more now after Season 2, Part 2. You also explore a lot of Roswell's past, which tells you more about who he actually is, what his real goals are, and shit like that. I'm trying my best not to spoil things again, but you learn so much about these characters through their past, which was a big part of this season. You learn a lot, and I really appreciated that. They fleshed out the characters even more. Even though they were already very deep characters, they went even fucking deeper. Full-blown colonoscopy on these characters. I really feel like I know the ins and outs of most of them now. It's just such a fucking good season. There's also great action as well. This will be a minor spoiler. There's an attack on the mansion, and Subaru has to figure out how to both save the sanctuary and the mansion. And the fight at the mansion is fucking nuts. There's so many moving parts that you got fucking blood, guts, bowels, and titties flying all over the place. Vampires. I mean, there's a lot going on. Like, even if you're just there for the action, which ReZero isn't really known for, like, its over-the-top action, but there is good action in it. Even if you just want action, you do get it in the season. You get some really good shit, especially with the mansion content. And even outside of that, there's still other fights. A very interesting fight in the sanctuary. Really hard to talk about these without spoilers, but I'm trying. Anyway, it's good. It's good. All around, this is just as good as every other season of ReZero, if not even a little better at points. ReZero Season 2, Part 2, the whole season, fucking great. Plugging this into the Moist Meter, it's another 95%. This show is holding the quality. It's holding the great writing. It is just an absolute banger. The show slaps hard as fuck. Highly recommend it. And yeah, that's about it.
Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Attack on Titan's final season. I think this show is going to be up there with some of the big anime greats. This is a show that everyone talks about. It's one of the few shows that pretty much trends on Twitter every single new episode that airs. It's a show that has captured a lot of people, and rightfully so. I think it's a very unique show. Its storytelling, albeit at times a bit weak, is still overall really enjoyable. It tells a really compelling and interesting story. And I know that's like a controversial thing to say, but I really do think Attack on Titan has one of the better delivered stories in modern anime. I was pretty much glued to every fucking episode this season, getting answers to questions that we've had for years. Felt amazing. Watching, there are going to be a few spoilers here. I'm not going to spoil the whole season, but a few things I'm going to need to touch on for the review. Watching Eren's transformation into the big bad villain that he has become, a heartless, fucking ruthless man, has been really wild. I've followed the show every single time it's aired since it began. Season 1, I watched it week by week for the entire Season 1, same with 2 and 3 and now 4. So I really feel like over the course of fucking almost, 8-9 years now, it's really been kind of growing with the characters, and seeing where they've been ending up in the final season has been absolutely wild. I think they've done a great job with developing a lot of these characters and really making you care, and even taking them down paths where you feel really bad for them, or there's just a lot of things that I think they've done great with its cast of characters and its overarching universe. The biggest change this season is, of course, with Eren. Eren has become like the fucking boogeyman of Attack on Titan. If you don't eat your vegetables, your parents tell you Eren Yeager is gonna visit you. Like, he has become an actual evil person. He's done some fucked up shit, murdering children for the sake of furthering his own goals. It's absolutely a huge change from the character that we've grown to know and love over the years. But I think it's a change that makes sense. I really think Eren ending up where he is right now is a natural development for the character. So I'm totally fine with him becoming a fucking cult leader of the Jaegerists, leading this crazy militia and that's doing their own thing, going against the grain here and going against their island. I'm trying not to get too deep into spoilers, obviously, but it's very huge change from the old Eren, and I think it's done really well. And I think it's very brave to take your main character down this path, because you risk people not being satisfied. You risk people being turned off by it, because I love the character how he was. So the fact that you've evolved him into something different is a big risk that I think a lot of shows are afraid to take, but I'm glad Attack on Titan does go down this path. There's a lot of moving parts to the Attack on Titan universe, and I like that. I really like how they balance all of these things and they deliver a really compelling narrative. And on top of that, Attack on Titan has really great action. Every time Levi is on screen chopping up Titans, it's fucking beautiful. He's doing some crazy acrobatic maneuvers with his mobility gear, going fucking wild. The show, I think, just has it all. There are weaker moments in the series. I can't in good conscience say that this show is perfect, because the only thing perfect is anything Brendan Fraser is in, and Brendan Fraser does not appear in this series, so I can't say that it's perfect and flawless, because there definitely are moments where you'd roll your eyes, or maybe you just get confused, or maybe the exposition dump goes on a little too long. Attack on Titan does have a few episodes where it is pretty much just exposition between two characters, or even just in the head of one character. There's a lot of moments in the series like that that might turn people off if they're not drawn into the universe. But I really think overall Attack on Titan is an extremely solid show that lives up to the hype that it receives. I don't think it's overrated by any means. I know there's a lot of those big fucking Twitter hipsters. It's overrated. In fact, you should be watching this show that was made by a 4-year-old in Microsoft Paint. This is the better anime. I know there's a lot of that shit, but I really think Attack on Titan is up there with the hype. I don't think many people will be let down by the show. If you start it and get to the final season, I think there's a big payoff in watching where it is all going. I've really been blown away by the final season. I think it's been great. A lot of people were whining about CGI. The CGI is in Season 4 more than previous seasons, but it's not bad CGI. It's not janky Nintendo 64 cutscenes. It doesn't take you out or make you puke or make it any worse or anything like that. It doesn't detract from the enjoyment. It's put sparingly in places where there needs to be some movement, but they didn't have time to capture it with the full passion they've done with the other scenes in the show. So yes, the astute observer with a galaxy brain will notice some CGI in the season, but it really shouldn't ruin it for you, and if it does, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. You need to seek some help or something. It's pretty trivial. It's not consistent and constant and horrible, terrible, awful dogshit CGI. It's fine. So that shouldn't really be a chief complaint of the season. It's definitely not for me. The fight in Marley, I thought, was one of the best in the entire series. The entire Marley arc with Eren that is infiltrated, I thought was some of the hypest shit I've seen in the show. I think it was absolutely fantastic, executed beautifully with some really intense moments. Another thing I saw a lot of people whining and complaining about was Gabby as a character. And that's because Gabby does something to, I'm not going to spoil, but Gabby does something that a lot of people, fans of the series, didn't like. And I don't think it was bad or done poorly or anything. I actually think Gabby's a pretty strong character. She's like Eren's younger version, but from Marley. She's very similar to how old Eren was. The only thing that she thinks of is death to her enemies. Bringing death and destruction is the only way to be saved. Not too dissimilar from Eren. I really think Gabby was a very strong new character they introduced. Falco, I'm not too big on at the moment. He's not like a bad character or anything, but he just hasn't really had a chance to shine. I'm sure he probably evolves into a better character and a more important one later on, but for now he just seems like someone that gets fucking used as a fleshlight by everybody because he's the only one that seems to have a heart in the show. So right now, Falco doesn't really serve a purpose other than just get fucked up and used. But really, I just don't think there was a single bad moment in Season 4 at all. The only time where I found myself a little uninterested was when they were going over the Tibers, and that's only because they had just introduced this character and then exposition fucking diarrheaed about his past. But I ended up still liking him when he was on stage. Delivering a really important narrative piece about the history of the Titans. Like, it was really illuminating. It revealed a lot of important information. But that's like the only nitpicky one episode that I can even say had a slow part at all. Everything else I thought was great. I really, really was blown away by Season 4. If you've watched the show up until this point, I can't see how you'd be disappointed with Season 4. It's just fucking great. The only thing that I can maybe understand people being a little let down by is the fact that they're not out there just peeling dick off of Titans anymore. Like, they're not killing fucking thousands of Titans or getting killed by thousands of Titans like they used to. They've clearly mastered the art of killing Titans, and they're not as much of a threat. Like, they're just normal, standard, vanilla, bland, missionary-only kind of Titans. You don't see a whole lot of those being a threat like they used to be. And for some people, maybe that's a turnoff, but for me, I think it's a great evolution of the series. They've been fighting these things for fucking years. They've really learned a lot about the world in Season 4, so now the biggest enemies they face are other humans, as well as how these humans are using the Titans that are on their side. And it's just, I really, really, really fucking love Attack on Titan and the direction that it took. I couldn't be happier with the series. Plugging Attack on Titan into the Moist meter, I'm giving it a 90%. I really think this show is extremely strong, albeit, yes, there are flaws. I just can't imagine someone that doesn't at least enjoy the show. You know, maybe there's a few things you don't like about it, but overall, it's hard not to like the show. I think it's fucking beautiful. I think it is really well done, and I think it has a really unique story that it's telling in a very great way. So I'm a huge fan. Attack on Titan final season is an absolute banger. And yeah, that's about it. I'd like to talk to you about bar soap and the discomfort I've experienced in the past using bar soap. Just a lot of shitty chemicals that made me really dry and itchy after a shower. And then recently I found Dr. Squatch products. Dr. Squatch is changing the way men approach hygiene. It provides a natural, healthy product that'll make you smell and feel like a fucking man and a champion. So Dr. Squatch, the scent that I used that really liked the best was the fresh aloe. It smelled good, my skin wasn't dry or itchy, it felt real nice, so that'd be the one I'd recommend as far as the scents go. And it's just overall a much better experience using the Dr. Squatch bar soaps than any of the other ones I've ever used in my life. So if you're interested in trying Dr. Squatch to level up your shower game, you can click the link in the description below to get 20% off on orders of $20 or more at drsquatch.com. So just make sure to click the link below if you're interested, and you can get 20% off on your orders of $20 or more. That's it. See ya.
Initiating moisture.
Attack on Titan, the final season, part 2, Turbo Mode Arcade Edition. It's all come to an end now, until part 3. So this is the final season, second part. It leads into the third part. I'm sure that's not a spoiler now since it's like the #1 thing on Twitter. By the time they actually finish the Attack on Titan story, it's going to be like the fucking Dragon Balls. There's going to be like 8 of these goddamn things, and you have to gather them all together for the complete season. Or it'd be like the fucking Horcruxes from Harry Potter, like 7 parts of this that, you know, all combined to form the complete package. And I won't even complain, because part 2 was extraordinary. I enjoyed every episode. I didn't think there was any, like, dog shitty moments in it or anything like that. As I've mentioned before, Attack on Titan is the only show ever that I've watched every single week since it started airing. I've watched every single episode the day that it aired, or at least within a couple days of it airing. I never fell behind and had to catch up. I never just waited for a season to end to binge it. I've watched it week by week since the very first episode. It's a show that I'm very invested in, and I think the whole final season, not just part 2, has just been amazing. Mappa's outdone themselves. I think the visuals have been outstanding. All of the action has been beautifully animated. They're using CGI really well, where it's not like glaringly obvious. It doesn't look like fucking 2001's Beast Wars or anything like a lot of other anime do when they introduce CGI, or it looks like an actual, like, Jimmy Neutron pilot from the late 90s because of the CGI shit. They do a great job of using CGI when necessary and not making it, like, obviously, like, bad. I just think they've done an outstanding job with the show, and I know the manga ended, and the ending was very divisive in the community. The reception was super split. I haven't read the manga, I'm not trying to spoil myself for the show, but with the way parts 1 and 2 have gone so far, I can't imagine them fumbling the bag so hard or like blowing out their asshole where it just becomes super trash at the end. They're setting themselves up for like a really great conclusion, I feel, and hopefully this statement doesn't age like milk where it turns out it is an absolutely awful ending up there with like Promised Neverland Season 2 where it's just like a slideshow to finish it off or some shit. Then I'll just look silly for believing in them. I'll just be sitting here looking fucking stupid with my soft cock in hand like, well, this is what I get for dreaming, I suppose. I'm hoping it continues with this masterclass of storytelling and animation. And yes, I understand for a lot of people it's just shonen, so it's not meant to be like super profound or anything, but I just really think Attack on Titan transcends like that shonen barrier of storytelling where a lot of people look at it as childish. I think Attack on Titan does a great job of just making it enjoyable for anyone of any age. It just is a really fun show. Part 2, in particular, I think did a great job of presenting a lot of exposition without it ever feeling boring. Every episode had at least 1 or 2 moments where you're like actually shitting your diaper. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe that's happening right now. I don't want to get into any spoilers because I really think this is a must-watch show for anyone who's a fan of animation in any capacity. So I won't get into spoilers, but the transition of Eren from like a protagonist you root for to a character where you're like, damn, I don't know about that shit. It was one of my favorite things about Code Geass, where the protagonist becomes someone that you can't really root for anymore, because they're making some decisions where it's like, damn, that shit's fucking evil. You know, and you never really know where their heart is or what their real motives are, and I really love that about, well, Code Geass and now Attack on Titan. I just find it to be a really interesting storytelling device. I really love that element of it, and I think Attack on Titan does it super well. In part 2 of this season, the characters go through true fucking despair. Pretty much every character here has to face some demons and make some really hard choices that have massive consequences. And there's a really compelling moment. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers. I would highly recommend watching it. Part 2, I think, has done a great job, and it's one of the few anime that I think really gets everyone together and talking because there's just so much to talk about. It's a show that just presents so many moving parts, and they all just kind of work and fall into place. I never really get the impression that things were just made up on the fly, that everything had a bigger purpose in the grand scheme of the narrative, and I think it's done great in the show. It's hard to talk about Attack on Titan without giving spoilers, but I really think it's for the best not to give any spoilers to anyone that hasn't seen the show, because it really is something pretty special if you ask me. I think this is one of those anime that people will look back on in 10 years and be like, damn, I remember where I was when Attack on Titan wrapped up. What a journey it was. I also think Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2 Revenge of the Sith A New Hope has the best opening in all of anime, and I don't say that lightly, but the rumbling from Sim is so good. I was already a fan of Sim before this, and this is probably their best song. It is so good. This shit just slaps so hard. It is probably just a little bit better than Vinland Saga's opening from Survive Said the Prophet, which was my previous favorite anime opening. This one I never skipped. I was always just fucking jamming out. It was an absolute boner jam. It really was. So great work from Sim here with the rumbling. There was just nothing I disliked about the part 2 of the final season here. There wasn't any like particular moments or episodes or any decisions they made that I thought were weak. I just thought everything they did was a great and logical progression of the characters and the plot. And it took me on a fucking ride, and I enjoyed every second of it. So, plugging Attack on Titan Final Season Part 2 into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it a 95%. Like I said, I think the show is really a must-watch. Again, it's not going to be like the most thought-provoking piece of media of all time, and I don't think it's trying to be. It does enough to transcend like just childish shonen action. It presents you with a really interesting narrative with really interesting characters and presented beautifully from Mappa's animation that I really think it can just be enjoyed by everyone. It doesn't have to be like a game-changing piece of, you know, timeless fiction, but right now I just think it's like a really enjoyable and fun adventure to go on that'll constantly have you guessing and on the edge of your seat for where everything ends up. So I enjoyed it, and that's about it. See ya.